Thank you, guys. Miller, thanks for that setup. That was really nice. Really appreciate it. Test. Can you guys hear me? You guys can hear me? Welcome to the Data Center and AI panel. I head the global data center practice, and I'm pleased to be here with my folks. I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves. So we'll start with Cal. Please introduce yourself, talk about your company, and I think I like what Kinka was using. Tell us your superpower.
Okay. My name is Kaladhar. I'm from Equinix. I'm a senior technologist at Equinix looking at our AI strategy and AI initiatives. Equinix, think of us like for those of you who don't know, like an airport. Just like airport brings many different airlines together, we bring all the clouds, all the networks, finance, health, all these companies, they come and interconnect with each other at Equinix. And in the age of AI, we are the place for private AI or hybrid AI, because most companies who want to have control over their data, they are actually deploying their private AI stacks at Equinix. And my superpower, I guess, just humility, maybe.
What about your companies? What about Equinix?
Equinix's superpower, we are the largest digital platform, interconnection digital platform in the world. Yeah.
Nice. Dan?
All right. My name's Dan Eline, representing Digital Realty. I'm the Vice President of Platform Solutions. My team and I are charged with taking our 300-plus global platform of data centers, mapping them to customer needs, and making sure that we have the right product fit and the right partners in play on our platform to help you do more business. Kind of as our superpower is really our ability to do this at any scale. I know a lot of you know us as the big guys who can do big, and we do. We love big. We do big all day. But we can do anything from the small partial cabinet up to the full land bank solution, depending upon what you need to do. My personal superpower is making all of this seem sexy.
Jay?
I'm Jay Smith. I'm the Vice President of Data Center Operations and Engineering at Evocative. I guess Evocative is, again, I'm up here with the big guys, right? But we're the smaller operator, if you would. That means we're a little bit more nimble and more flexible. As Mel can probably share with you, I've built some solutions for your clients recently that are a little bit out of the box. I guess my superpower would be I'm highly technical, but that doesn't mean I can't translate it to be more simplistic and easier for end users to understand.
Awesome.
Yeah, great. And thanks for sticking around. It's late afternoon. It starts getting tough to pay attention, so we're going to try to make this engaging for y'all. But I'm Brian Eichmann, VP of Business Development and Solutions Architect at CoreSite. And I'm a little actually disappointed that on Mel's birthday week here, he didn't come out doing the gritty to his walk-up music, but that's neither here nor there. But really, CoreSite's superpower, for those that haven't had a chance to work with us, we purpose-build highly scalable, high-dense data center campuses in key communication markets. And in those data center campuses, the clouds are native to that ecosystem, so it makes it very easy for your customers to interconnect and integrate to those clouds over low latency links. And then kind of the third piece of that is we bring the product set that makes it just real simple for your customers to connect into their clouds, between their CoreSite data center deployments, and just really developing out like a world-class fabric and network product set. And then probably just round that off is, we're not as large as maybe some of the others on here, so we're very easy to do business with. And we're in your backyard there in Santa Clara, so in LA, so we get great relationships with the Bridgepointe community. So thanks for hanging around today.
Thanks, Brian, and a shout out to Brian. This is the 4th time in as many years he's been on my panel, so he's a rock star. Thank you for being on there.
I live for it.
So this morning at 8 o'clock, I had a call with a client and a operator, data center operator, and a strategist. And it's for 20 megawatts of capacity. So it's our 4th call. It's tracking along. If we win that deal, the commission is around $8 or $9-ish million. Oh, have I got your attention now? Glenn Gary, Glenn Ross, right? You're like, no, I'm not kidding. It's a big commission, guys. So when I'm talking about the present state of the data center market, anyone who's heard me speak before, basically there's three things that I call the trifecta, the perfect storm, right? The hyperscalers, AWS, Azure, continue to grow with double digits. The data center industry itself is growing. It'll be a $100 billion industry in the next 10 years. It's about 50 right now. But again, it's that first demand that's driving the low supply and the high demand. The second one is AI that's just exploded onto the marketplace. We'll talk about that here in a couple slides. When I talk about AI, I'm talking about from an infrastructure perspective, right? I'm talking about somebody buying an NVIDIA SuperPod or a high-performance computing platform in order to run their training. This is after they've gone through AI ideation and they're ready to move to go to market. They have a couple of options. They can throw in AWS's GPU cloud, which is driving their demand, or they can put in a data center for one of these guys. Or they'll put in AWS GPU cloud, which will buy a data center from one of these guys. So the cloud has four walls, so the demand is continuing to proliferate. The third one is on-prem to co-location, because what happened was in 2020, people started closing their offices, and they might have had 10 cabinets or 20 or 50 or 60, right? They had a data center on-prem, and they're moving that to the colo. That's the third trend. Okay, those three together are just driving about 2% of available inventory in the United States. And there's approximately 1% in markets like Northern Virginia, Silicon Valley, the biggest markets in the world. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about those trends. In terms of pricing, now this is no knock on my network infrastructure sellers, but I used to sell network infrastructure a long time, and it's a race to zero. This is data center. The price of data center has gone up by 50% in the last 18 months. Think about that. Prices are going up. You're making more money. This particular slide is a CBRE slide that basically shows that the pricing is going to continue to compound 13% year over year for the next 3 years. So what can we do with this? We can tell a client, hey, why would you sign a 3-year term? When you come out of that, your pricing is going to be 50% higher. You don't want that, right? So sign him on a 5-year term. Again, it's for his benefit. So, by the way, my notes aren't here, so I'm going to go old school. I brought a plan B just in case. All right, so let's start with this. Given the short supply in the industry, we'll start with you, Jay, from Evocative. What do you think in terms of what type of buying practices should buyers be employing, and what should our strategists be telling them in terms of what they should be buying, right? Or how they should be buying?
Well, first and foremost, the longer term, the better, right? Again, Mel touched on it a minute ago. If we're all out of capacity, right? Supply and demand, it's simple economics. Prices are going to go up. Not 12% or 13%, but potentially 25%. So longer term, lock people in as long as they can. They need to plan their buying longer term, meaning their growth, and they need to secure it right away. Clients come to us asking for right of first offers on adjacent space or additional power in a data center. And the reality is, sure, we'll give it to you, but we're probably going to call it before you want it. You're probably at a better place to be able to go and lock down that capacity, and we may have to charge you for it at a discount, or the client at a discount. But you're better off locking that in. They need to think not 1 year or 2 years. They need to think 5, 7, even 10 years down the road. And then back to the AI touch, right? AI is a very different animal. So what customers need to build into their infrastructure to start with, the AI infrastructure is 5 to 20 times more power dense than what they're running in a standard rack today.
Yep, good point. And Dan, what about from Digital's perspective? You guys are a big wholesale player, selling a lot of wholesale capacity. What about from your perspective? What kind of buying trend should people be or looking and asking for as they're buying wholesale capacity?
Sure, Mel. And I think, as I said, we do both, right? So obviously, yes, we do see larger footprints quite frequently, but we do smaller footprints. And so for us, it's colo, right? And whatever type of consumer you are. But I think, as Jay said, the thing is, it's very common, right? A customer is going to show up and say, this is what I need, and here's where I need it. And they're talking about today, point in time. And it's important to be very firm with them and say, look, you don't buy what you need now. You need to buy what do you need in 3 years, in 6 years, further down the road. Because as we said, it's simple economics. It's availability of capacity. You're going to start to see, I think, a shift from things like ROFOs into reservations, right? And that's going to change the dynamic. So being thoughtful about what you think you need down the road, which, by the way, is a great opportunity for everybody in this room, because that is a more consultative conversation, right? What does your roadmap look like, versus what you're trying to do right now? What is that in support of? What is the expectation of that growth? Is it a platform on which additional business units are going to be onboarded, et cetera, things that will drive additional growth. So be thinking about that. Also, be very thoughtful about where, right? Because where you place your critical infrastructure matters. And have in mind some flexibility, or at least some understanding of why you think you want to put things where you do. Because there may be an opportunity to put something in an adjacent market, at more favorable rates, where you can upsell than that additional future capacity.
That's a great point. And in some cases, if it's an AI buyer, right, so they bought $100 million of NVIDIA, they don't want to pay taxes on that. So there's certain regions where you get tax-free placement every time they refresh and buy new gear. All right, so we can consult to them about that. So really quickly, let's talk about the grid, right? We're running out of power just because of the capacity and all these things happening at the same time. You can also see that the costs have gone up because of inflation. And when you're out of power, you got to build more. And so the grid, the utility company charges more. An example, Nevada Energy, 4.9 cents a kilowatt hour in 2017 when I was at Switch Data Centers at the time. Okay, today it's over 11 cents a kilowatt hour. You can see the price is going up. So that's bringing up not just the cost of data center, but the cost of the utility to operate a data center is also going up. So there's other things that have to happen. You'll see some trends there, right? You'll see, first off, on the right side, that is a nuclear power plant. Right? And Amazon in 2023 bought a $1.2 billion, 1.2 gigawatts of power from the Pennsylvania, nuclear power company, right? And that basically gave them a powered shell, that's 6 buildings of basically just the shell with the power delivered, and then they're going to build it out as they need to. That was a couple of years ago. They're already going into it. So, and then recently, as recent as a month ago, Microsoft is getting 3 Mile Island back up. So they just announced that. So guys, in addition to that, there's what's called SNR, small nuclear reactors, which you can actually power an entire data center, right? So let's get to some of the other slides. So this shows you the power that's being deployed the most in terms of alternate grids, right? It's solar, right? Well, solar can only operate during the day, so you're going to have to augment that with another technology. Maybe you back it up with utility or whatever. So those are the trends happening here. So given that, Brian from CoreSite, with global utility power challenges, where do you see the industry headed? Like, what do we do?
It's pretty remarkable, right? I think we're all looking at this pretty creatively here, and it sure came up fast. So, at CoreSite, we kind of look at this in a few different pillars here. So one, just being very efficient and diligent with how you manage the capacity within your buildings, within your campuses, and making sure that your PUE is on point, that you're ultimately just running your plant as efficiently as possible, right? A kilowatt saved, it goes a long way. So, we've definitely put tons of investments, and we focus on just operating our plant and working with our customers to make sure they're doing things as efficiently and effectively as possible. Secondly, on-site power generation. Kind of the sensational one is, we want to hear about nukes coming, to the data center campus. I'm not a fortune teller, but we're not quite there yet, right? That's still, a little futuristic. So we're a bit more pragmatic. So we've been doing on-site fuel generation for quite a long time. actually. There's a technology called Bloom fuel cells. And we deployed Bloom cells in 2 of our higher cost power markets 7 or 8 years ago, San Jose and in Boston, where just utility rates were ridiculous. So we've, over those 7 or 8 years, have just got a lot of learnings and experience deploying those. So I would definitely see CoreSite scaling that technology throughout our platform where it makes sense. And then the last thing that I believe that you will see, that I know that we are focused on, is you're going to see infrastructure, data center co-location distribute more broadly throughout the United States, right? Now there's roughly 12 to 15 kind of key communication hubs in the US. Kind of think your major cities, Northern Cal, LA, Chicago, New Yorks, and things like that. Whereas we are now looking for secondary markets to deploy capital in, not only because latency is important to customers, but a lot of time the availability of power is pushing us to do that because of our customers. So I think that's how we look at it.
Excellent. What about you, Cal? What about Equinix? How do you guys look at it?
Yeah, definitely. So we recently announced a $15 billion joint venture for what we call as xScale data centers. These are large data centers, multi-hundreds of megawatts size data centers, where basically the hyperscalers are coming and co-locating their AI infrastructure with Equinix. So one key strategic trend, I just want to echo what he said. In the past, people were building data centers where the end customers were. Now, there is a bifurcation in the industry that's happening. You have to build large-scale data centers, like what we call as xScale, near where there is availability of power. So for AI training, a lot of those clusters where people are building their foundation models will be in those type of data centers. But then once you build those models, to monetize, it's called AI inference, you need to be close to where we have what we call as metro-level data centers, in pretty well where the human population is. So that's where interconnection matters. That's where proximity to the clouds matters. That's where proximity to all your data sources matter. So there's a bifurcation that is happening. And we at Equinix are looking at the entire end-to-end flow, both at the training side with nuclear power. We invested $25 million in Ookla Nuclear Technologies to get SMRs, right? Mind you, they will come end of this decade. They'll be onboarded. But so we are looking at the gigabyte strategy for data centers, as well as we're looking at the inferencing, which is where the end customers are located. So we're looking at an end-to-end strategy at Equinix.
And those are the 2 phases of infrastructure AI, right? You deploy the training model first, then you go inference closer to the end user, generally speaking, and they're smaller footprints. Let's talk a little about renewable energy, all right? So ESG is environmental social governance. So if you're a publicly traded company, it's extremely important for you to be able to potentially take your compute and put it into a cloud or put it into your own data center with renewable energy. So Dan, from a digital perspective, what does this mean to you guys, and what are you guys doing to push renewable energy in your business?
So I think it is definitely important to understand, when you're talking to your clients and you're advising them, understand, do they have, what is their ESG strategy? What is publicly stated? Many of our clients, we find, have publicly stated goals. We have some that are board level goals. So there's a fiduciary responsibility for them to meet that. And then, of course, the folks in Europe who are a little bit ahead of the power curve relative to us in the US, they have some government mandated goals. So being able to service that obviously is key. How we do that, it's a mixture of a number of things depending upon the environment. Obviously, one of the things about us, as all of us up here as data center providers, obviously being really the biggest consumers of electricity in most of the markets where we operate, also means we have purchasing power. So we have the ability to influence where does that power come from. So we do power purchasing agreements at large scale to ensure that we're powering our data centers with renewable sources. In any markets where it's not possible to be 100% renewable, because unfortunately some of those markets do still exist, it's making sure that we're getting equivalent credits, in many cases which can be passed on to the customer, and that's an important part of understanding. But the future is going to continue to push us in that direction. You'll see some hybridization of how we power facilities. And as Cal said, as we start to understand the distribution of things, again, that ability to push workloads in the direction, in the case of sustainability, for example, look, we can put this where it's 100% renewable, if that's an important goal to you, which is something the customer can't do in their own, end user data center. It's also something that you can't necessarily do with the cloud because it is where it is.
Good answer. And the large enterprise clients are asking for this. They want 100% renewable energy. They want to meet those governance goals. Cal, I know Equinix is a big push behind renewable energy. Can you talk a little bit about what you guys are doing?
Yeah, so 97% of the power that we get and the energy that we use is from renewable sources, and we get renewable certificates. And so this is global. So the 3% that we don't have are the acquisitions that we are trying to make them also green. And so one of the things that is important to note is that as we talk to customers, and let me give you some concrete examples. I was talking to one of the largest AI model as a service provider. So these guys are building these Gen AI models. And so when they were talking to us, they said, hey, great, you guys have this green energy strategy, but I need to be able to go to a machine level and monitor power, water temperature, et cetera. So what's your DSIM strategy? What kind of APIs do you provide? So it's sustainability, where you get your power from, but also how you leverage AI. Like, for example, we use AI to figure out how many chillers need to be on in a certain market. So we're actually leveraging AI to actually operate our data centers. Also, customers, they want, through APIs, ability to get data, and they want analytics on that data, right? So what we are noticing is a lot of software is percolating into how you actually look at your overall sustainability strategy.
That's great. All right, you said AI. Let's get into some of the trends that we started to see really in late 2022 and probably Q4 of 2022. We started working on some deals where somebody wanted 6 208 volt, 60 amp, 3-phase circuits, which are 17 kilowatts each. 6 of those into a cabinet. And I'm going, what is this? Why would you want to do that? Make it a complex architecture? What's going on? And it was basically the NVIDIA H100s just hitting the market. We then went on to work with a lot of larger service providers, cloud service providers, because they're adopting it and offering it as a service. So in Q1 of 2023, we came across the biggest CSP in the marketplace, who has a $7 billion agreement with Microsoft. And we were introduced to them, and they wanted us to help them find 30 megawatts. I happen to have a report of all the capacity globally, right? So I manage that very closely. My sellers help me as well, because my sellers are like, hey, Mel, that's been sold. It's not there. These guys have this capacity. Here's a new data center. And that's our intellectual property. So at the time when we got introduced to that company, I knew exactly where 30 megawatts was. It was in 2 places, and only 2 places. And within 60 days, we had cut a $200 million deal with that company. So it's extremely important to manage that infrastructure, where it's at, when it's coming online, and that's what we share with our customers. And there's many stories around that, but we share that with our top sellers as well. And if Brian showed, I think on Monday, the top sellers in the company, the top 20. And the first 2 specialize on this data center, right? They also do other stuff. We want to upsell, cross-sell, Scott. But at the same time, there's money here, guys. Okay, so here's NVIDIA, right? So on the left there, you see the H100s. These are those boxes. There's 4 of them in this cabinet, right? A customer can stack as many of these as they want. There's 8 GPUs in each of those, so there's 32 GPUs on the left. The faceplate from NVIDIA says that they'll run about 11.5 kilowatts each. We actually know that because we have experience from production. They're running about 36 to 38 kilowatts, which is borderline liquid cooling. So most people can't do it. A lot of the operators up here can, but it's a difficult thing. So what do? We advise clients. We're like, hey, you want to pay $1 million a megawatt for rear door heat exchangers? How about you just cut down to two per cabinet? So we have many customers that have deployed in that manner as well. Anyway, that's been around for a couple years. Next month, we have shipping the GB200s, right? And I apologize for getting too technical because this is a business discussion, but the game has changed. It's technical. So in this case, there's 72 of the Blackwell, which are the brand new chipsets, right, integrated in this one side on the right side. And it also has 36 of what the G stands for, the Grace GPUs. So just top technology from these guys. They're the most valuable company in the world because of what they're offering. So 108 integrated GPUs with liquid cooling and all of it. So here's a depiction. This is the reference architecture from NVIDIA. We work very closely with NVIDIA. So we also know that there's a pathway 4 years from now. NVIDIA's told us they're going to stack 1 megawatt per cabinet. 1 megawatt a cabinet. If you sell a megawatt today, it could be life-changing for you, right? And customers aren't going to want just one. They're going to want 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, right? So this is the place you want to be to sell, okay? So with that, let's talk about AI deployment practices. And we'll start with you, Brian. Can you share some best practices around deploying AI infrastructure?
Yeah, sure can. And but first, I kind of find it funny that the slide before AI and 1 megawatt cabinets, it was about sustainability and renewable power sources, because those things go like this on the spectrum there. But really, CoreSite's been doing AI deployments for quite a while with our customers. It is definitely a much bigger market today than it was a handful of years ago. But Mel kind of referenced there was an operator up here that can do 40 kW a cabinet, and that's CoreSite, right? CoreSite has purpose-built, high-dense data center campuses. That is our superpower. We can support those 40 kW a cabinet without any customizations. That is standard product for us, and we have always designed to that specification. For some of the newer builds, the GB200s that are coming out, 100 kW and plus a rack. We'll have to see about a megawatt a rack. I'm not sure if we're quite there yet. But, our newer data centers are designed and ready to support direct-to-chip, liquid cooling. They got taps. We work very closely with NVIDIA, as well as some of the other major manufacturers like Supermicro and HPE. So we work in a collaborative approach with them because they're out ahead of us, frankly. And we don't want them solutioning for something for a client, and then the client brings it to us, and we got to figure it out. So we are proactively engaged with them. We are NVIDIA certified to support their DGX SuperPods. We are hosting those today in our data centers. So kind of back to the question about just some best practices, work collaboratively with the data center operator, one, right? We're learning all this together here. We're going to have some insights. You're going to have some requirements, right? We're going to get there together. Work with somebody that's got a proven track record, right? There's a lot, data center business, there's a lot of new data centers that have popped up over the last decade. We're not all built the same. We don't all have the same experience. So make sure you're working with somebody that you can trust. And then in my experience, these are it's not only super cool infrastructure, right? It's kind of fun to geek out on it, but it's highly specialized. There's not a ton of people in this world yet that have just deep subject matter expertise across this entire domain. So you need to work with trusted partners and advisors throughout that process. And I think you guys are really uniquely situated to do that just because of your depth of bench across multiple domains. So I think you guys really have an opportunity to lean in on that and leverage the subject matter expertise that are behind you guys.
Thanks, Brian. That's great. In terms of, I talked about earlier, right, when AI first splashed onto the screen, Q4 2022, right? They wanted 6 208-volt circuits. North America was standardized on 208-volt. But the reality now is because you need so much density, 415 volts, new standard. If you're building a new building, like a greenfield building, it's going to be 415 volt. I just got to see the SV9 grand opening from Brian's company, and it was a beautiful building. They're standardizing 415 volt and then also a chilled water loop because you have to be able to employ liquid cooling when you're going to these or at least as an option, right? So if that chilled water loop is there, they can tap into it, they can build out from there and get that client, the ability to cool whatever he needs to. Where he's not doing the work, basically the box, the liquid cooling technology is doing all the work, right? I mean, they're helping out too, but in any case, so Jay, my question for you is, you guys have bought some brownfield facilities, and so in terms of how you, convert those to 415 to make it more dense, et cetera, so are you guys basically deploying the 415? How are you guys getting ready for that?
So what we've done today is, again, and it's back to having a chiller plant already, because you're going to need to go, if you're going to go that high dense, you're going to have to go liquid anyway, whether it's to rear door heat exchangers or eventually, it's upscalable to liquid to the chip. But effectively, if there's capacity in a data center, if there's capacity in a building, you can take the power infrastructure that's in place already, and you can deploy 415-volt transformers and RPPs. That's what we've done.
Okay.
And sure, it's a build time. It's going to take some number of months, depending upon permits, right? But again, the easy button there is to just not abandon more of a mothball the 208-volt infrastructure that you're going to leverage that power anyway, and then you can deliver it to the rack.
What about use cases? If we're talking about business now, business outcomes and use cases that you're seeing, what kind of use cases are you seeing, Jay, employing AI?
As far as what client bases and
Yeah, like which verticals are deploying it the most, and what's the use case that they're employing?
a lot of biomed, right? We're having these conversations pretty regularly. We've got a couple of clients that have small deployments, and in those cases, right, it's not 415-volt to the rack. We're just doing 208-60s. But fintech's big, and the last one off the top of my head. We've got a communication company. We've got I got to be careful what I say because I don't want to spill the beans on who it is. But they're in a government defense contract. So those are primarily the four verticals that I've seen a lot of things in.
Cal, what about Equinix? What are you guys seeing in terms of use cases?
Yeah, so we are, I would, at the highest level, categorize them as two buckets. What we call as private AI. In there, as he mentioned, fintech, government, health sciences. Definitely people who are paranoid about their data.
Yeah.
They don't want to upload their data. They want to have their AI infrastructure at Equinix. But interestingly, each one of them wants cloud adjacency because a lot of their data assets are still in the cloud. So they want really high-speed egress, low latency connectivity to the clouds. And Equinix is a very unique way we are providing that. So private AI, in that, I would say those are the three industry verticals. But for public AI, what we are finding is that many enterprises, when you go to them, they are saying we are still trying to figure out. And we want to know, and many of them are currently today already in the cloud. So what they're coming to us and saying, okay, I have all my data in one cloud, but I really want to use the foundation model for video annotation, which is in the other cloud, right? Can you help me with that? So what we are seeing is that in pretty well all industry verticals, people are saying we want to keep our data. That's our core jewel. We want to keep our data at Equinix and then have the flexibility to access AI models from different clouds. So because ingress is okay, it's not expensive. Egress is where they get to. And usually you're egressing just model insights. So that is basically giving them a lot of flexibility. And also what they're saying, we want to deploy for the base, for training and inference at Equinix. But suddenly if I have a need for bursting and get 1,000 more GPUs, I want to have access to multiple GPU or the cloud providers. Because GPUs, it's very hard to get in the hyperscalers today. And that's the reason why a lot of them are saying we'll keep our data at Equinix and then have the flexibility to burst in or even deploy a private AI at Equinix. And this is across all industry verticals. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would agree with that some people don't want to put their data, their crown jewels up in the cloud, right? So those guys, and we haven't really seen that proliferation yet. It's just starting. We're at the beginning of it. Mike Pereira's probably going to launch an AI practice where we're going to have somebody that can help a client with AI ideation all the way into the solution, the ROI, the TCO, all of it, right? And those guys are going to want to start deploying in these verticals when they have the ROIs, when they have the use cases that make sense for them. And that's when we're going to see a ton more opportunity with enterprise clients doing this. Let's talk a little bit about repatriation. Repatriation is when you take a workload or an application, pull it out of AWS or Azure cloud, right, public cloud, and you bring it back into a data center to save money. So Jay, this is your slide. Thank you for lending it to us. Can you please talk to maybe this particular use case?
Yeah, so again, 50% of companies are over budget. So they budgeted a certain dollar amount to leverage the cloud, and they're over by at least 15%. There was a study the prior year that I had some data that I shared with Mel that 67% of those interviewed said they were over budget between 10 and 40%. So we had a software company that wanted out of the cloud. And they realized a $10 million in cost savings they went out and bought the hardware, they bought the networking gear, and they deployed it in a data center. And over a 5-year span, that's $10 million in real money. So I think we're all seeing it to some degree. Whether you need to pull some of your data out of the cloud or you want to pull all of your infrastructure out of the cloud, it's there, it's coming. It's been talked about for years, and now I think we're starting to see more reality.
Yeah, that's a great use case, right? It was a social media company. It's been talked about a few times. I mean, they haven't said their name, but I don't know what their name is, but they're saving a ton of money. All right? What about you, Brian? What are you seeing in terms of some of the use cases for repatriation?
Yeah, no, thanks. We see workloads push and pull in and out of the clouds on a pretty regular basis, and I think this is kind of really just driven because we do provide direct connections to all of the clouds. So, we naturally attract companies that are deploying hybrid cloud. So workloads, across our fiber interconnects and our fabrics, they're in and out of the cloud. So to me, I kind of take more so than, is there a specific application, is there a specific vertical that this fits for? I just look at it as like a math problem, right? And I think this is a great opportunity for you folks out there to get in and do cost assessments with them, because really it's a build versus buy decision. And I'm a 20-year IT engineer. I never really got too tied to a specific technology. I had a goal, but I had, to fit it within a budget, right? And how could I do this most effectively and at the right price? And to me, that's how you view this if you're going cloud or if you're going to build it, right? If you can build it and operate it at a better price than you can in the cloud, well, that sucker is prime to repatriate, right? But if it costs you too much to buy the equipment, or you don't have the expertise to operate it, well, then, cloud is probably a great option for you. So, I think just one theme that I could leave you with is don't glob onto a technology or to a hardware. Really look for the business outcome, from it, and advise your clients to do things that, ultimately hits their business objective at the right price.
It's a great point. And then also, so you guys know, in the portfolio, right, we also have cloud optimization companies that can certainly look at their AWS workloads and all that and help potentially identify some of those things that we want to put back into the data center, as well as some ways that they can save that client money and become that client's managed service provider around public cloud. So, I mean, one thing is clear. It's when we talk about fabric, and that is, this is how you interconnect the data centers, right? So most of the data centers are highly interconnected. Some are more highly interconnected than others. Some have more locations. But fabric is how you employ a hybrid. We made a couple of examples earlier where your data center might be in a co-location. You're also moving workloads and data to AWS. You might be storing in somebody's private cloud or a storage cloud, et cetera. So there's importance in this particular subject, right? Because there is nobody that's 100%. I mean, maybe there's a few that are 100% in the cloud or 100% colo. Most are hybrid. So Dan, talk a little bit about the fabric that you guys employ and how you help clients.
Certainly. We also have unique to us kind of proposition around Fabric. All of our data centers are interconnected, multi-100 gigabit wavelength, depending upon what the customer needs. It is orchestratable. We provide all of the APIs to do that. What is different and distinct about us, because you're going to hear that, right? Pretty much everybody up here has that capability to some extent. What is unique about us is the concept that it's not a closed system. So with respect to some of my colleagues up here, we'll let you connect not only to every digital realty site that you want to use. If you happen to also have your customer has a workload that lives in Equinix, we will allow you to connect to that workload. If you have one in CoreSite, we will allow you to connect to that, along with all of the cloud providers and a number of other ecosystem players that are part of our Fabric ecosystem. And I think that that's a thing that customers are should be aware of, as Mel said, because kind of back to repatriation, if I take that, and let's just refer to that as kind of workload placement optimization. Having that Fabric and that ability to do that, whether it's moving things to the cloud, moving things, as we talked about, maybe you don't need to be in a downtown, very expensive facility. That workload could live outside in a less expensive. Having that Fabric in place there to be, that could be software orchestrated, you can move those workloads seamlessly, and we work with a number of partners on ways to automate that.
Yeah, it's super important. And Cal, I'll give you, Equinix is the most highly interconnected in the world. Talk to us about their benefits for your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things is that we are in 260 plus markets. So we are finding AI use cases where customers are ingressing data. We have some of the largest electric car companies. They're ingressing data in like 13 or 14 different markets. And they want to very efficiently move that data to their AI cluster. So global presence is something, and all our data centers are interconnected. So that's definitely something we're finding very useful. The other thing is we have all the more than 2,000 network providers that are coming and interconnecting with our Fabric, right? So and that is useful because what we are finding now is that airports, people grocery stores, restaurants, right? They don't want to keep their AI inference infrastructure in those locations for physical security reasons and OpEx reasons. Instead, they're relying on these carriers to bring that traffic to a metro-level location like Equinix, because our data centers in most of the global major metros, right? And latency matters for some of these video workloads. You cannot go to the availability zone, which is in a different city, right? So basically, the high density of network providers that are bringing in the traffic from the edge that come to Equinix, and we have more than 3,000 clouds that are connected with, in many cases, 1 to 2 milliseconds on the other side, right? Interconnecting all of that using our software-defined Fabric is a very key differentiator.
Yeah, that's a great point. And we didn't even get into latency. We're just about out of time. But yeah, latency is basically distance over fiber, and that's super important for application performance. In any case, we're about to wrap up. Scott Evers is going to come up and say a few things, some announcements. But before we do that, please, let's thank our panel here. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.